We're now moving on to Soviet Constructivism. Now, Soviet Constructivism really is tied to the advent and early development of the Soviet Union. It is half politics, half aesthetics. The style that we now call Soviet Constructivism was an artistic design and architectural movement that began in Russia from around 1914 or 1917 onward, favoring applied art with a social purpose rather than art for art's sake. So the art has to exist to beautify something that's going to be utilitarian in some way. You can imagine this being used as political propaganda or in structures that will push political ideas or be practical. You get the idea. And it borrows ideas from Cubism as well as Futurism, but was entirely new in its approach to making objects. One which sought to abolish the traditional artistic concern with composition and replace it with construction, building things as opposed to composing things. Constructivism called for a careful technical analysis of modern materials, and it was hoped that this investigation would eventually yield ideas that could be used in mass-produced products, serving the ends of a modern communist society. They want a practical end to whatever they create. Ultimately, however, the movement flounders in trying to make the transition from the artist studio to the factory. Now, Russian constructivism was in decline by the mid-1920s, partially a victim of the Bolshevik regime's increasing hostility to avant-garde art. Not unlike Futurism, they exalted the machine as a source of universal progress in both its content and aims. Constructivism was hugely influential amongst progressive artists and designers across Europe. So let's talk about some of their ideals. Constructivists proposed to replace art's traditional concern with composition with a focus on construction. Objects were to be created not in order to express beauty, but to carry out a fundamental analysis of the materials and forms of art, one which might lead to the design of a functional object, hopefully a design of a functional object. For many of these constructivists, this meant an ethic of being true to their materials. So they're not going to try and create illusion like you would see from the Cubists. They want to maintain a purity of material so that they truly understand that material and maybe come up with something revolutionary that would increase the living standard for everyone in the Soviet Union or wherever else. So constructivist art often aims to demonstrate how materials behave, to ask, for instance, what different properties had materials such as wood, glass, and metal. The form an artwork would take would be dictated by its materials, rather than the materials dictating the form. So the artist will not transform the materials so much as construct and make use of the materials. For some, these inquiries were a means to an end, the goal being the translation of ideas and designs into mass production. For others, it was an end itself, a new modern style expressing the dynamicism of modern life. Really, the seed of constructivism was a desire to express the experience of modern life, its dynamicism, its new and disorienting qualities of space and time. But also crucial was the desire to develop a new form of art more appropriate to the democratic and modernizing goals of the Russian Revolution, and democratic not meaning in terms of politics, but giving power to the people. Whole another ballgame there. Constructivists were to be constructors of a new society, cultural workers on par with scientists in their search for solutions to modern problems. So let's look at their political propaganda. Artists saw art in the service of the Soviet system. They were in favor of this socialist or communist system. They integrated art and life. hoping that the art would foster the ideological aims of the new society as well as its citizens. However, only in Russia is the revolution in art and politics so closely linked. Elsewhere, we don't see quite the close link. And it's the artists trying to get close to the politicians occasionally taking advantage, but never really understanding the power of art and backing off from time to time, sometimes pushing them away and trying to get away from the avant-garde ideas that they saw at the base of many of these forms in Soviet constructivism.